Hello and welcome back to the Devlog. Today we'll be talking about the battle system, but in a way that's different from the previous episodes. While most of the game is already thought out and most concepts are already figured out, the only part of them that are ready are their building blocks. With the battle system, it's actually quite the opposite. While it's by far the system with the most amount of code in it, I'm still struggling with separating it from my inspirations. But if we want to discuss improving it, I first have to explain how it is currently. As you see, the placeholder UI is familiar. Anyways, the first option is the thing I'll probably work on after releasing this episode. Currently, the attacking is on the level of Minecraft PvP. You just have to spam. The idea is that every weapon is a reference to a rhythm game, and to execute the attack, you have to complete a few seconds long pattern from each one. The next one is probably the biggest differentiating factor from Undertale. It's my attempt to make my version of the genocide route more interesting, with specific enemies being weak to specific attacks. The items are pretty standard RPG items. The only noteworthy thing about them is that I want to include more story-based items like Earthbound, but they'll be destroyed after their relevancy is over because I do not want them to hog inventory space. And finally, my very original surprise mystery option. Ooh, what could it be? Yeah, if it wasn't obvious, it's the act menu. But in my story, you only get it about mid or third way into the story, so the pacifist route is more about redemption than pacifism, which just so happens to be the main theme and takeaway of the story. Now that I've drawn you in with actually interesting stuff, I'll do a little explanation of the system for those who care. If you don't, go to the timestamp on the screen. Are they gone now? So, the backbone of the entire thing is the UI manager script, which controls the UI based on the enum inside the battle system script. An enum is just a variable which can be set between specific states. Beside the UI manager, the other major scripts are the ones used to construct the enemy's attacks. These are the actual notes the player has to hit, the lane scripts which instantiate the notes and listen for input, and an attack manager which translates MIDI files to actual attacks, so I can create patterns with any DAW, and I don't have to make my own pattern creator. Another thing the attack manager does is checking which arrows have certain gimmicks. These gimmick arrows are supposed to represent your enemies using magic, and each correlates to an element. These elements aren't your classic avatar elements, by the way. In Mythos, the 4 usable elements are fire, lightning, storm, and wind. The fire ones are like the bombs in Fruit Ninja. They hurt you when you hit them instead of when you miss them. These lightning ones are similar to the yellow arrows in Undertale. They first appear in the opposite lane, but they switch to their actual lanes in the last second. The storm arrows are just hold notes. Finally, the wind arrows gradually become harder to see, kinda like that one Osu modifier I forgot the name of. The general loop is very similar to Toby Fox games. It's just one less turn, because enemies get automatically spared once you do the correct sequence of acts. The way you actually enter fights is very similar to Earthbound. Common enemies can be avoided by not touching them in the overworld, while bosses have to be specifically triggered by the player, most of the time by talking to them. Speaking of bosses, they will actually function a little differently. Instead of a several round fight, they have one big pattern you have to play through. And that's mostly it. However, this is where I would like to ask for your help. That's right, I know I'm still a really small channel, but if you somehow stumble upon this video and have any idea how to make this battle system more unique, please leave a comment.